President Uhuru Kenyatta's decision has earned him lots of praise in his home country, with many proclaiming his innocence and declaring their undying support for their leader. Now let's explore the president's decision a little further. David Mwaniki, the chief executive at the Global Crisis Solution, joins me now from our Pretoria studios. Hi, David. Uhuru Kenyatta's decision to go to The Hague in his personal capacity so as not to, and I quote, compromise the sovereignty of the Kenyan people. Now, you do recall, of course, he was elected president despite charges from the ICC, and some believed he turned the prosecution to his advantage, alleging foreign intervention in Kenya's domestic affairs. So why is he actually going to The Hague if he was talking about foreign intervention?
Well, Kwangu, I think we need to go back to the genesis of this ICC case. President Uhuru Kenyatta was indicted before he was elected into office as the president of Kenya. And at the point when the indictment came through, the one commitment he made was that he would see through the legal process to the end. So in a sense, this is him meeting his commitment. And of course, we must recall that he was not indicted as the president of Kenya. And therefore, it is befitting and actually quite a strategic move on his part to go there as an individual and not as the president of Kenya.
But David, last year there was a special AU summit where we know mass withdrawal from the ICC was discussed and that fell through. And then the AU asked the Security Council to defer his hearing. That failed as well. Now, when push comes to shove, did he have a choice but to go?
No, indeed, Kwangu, he's going as a citizen of Kenya and not as a president. In fact, reaffirms that common African position. Because one of the things that emerged out of that was that a sitting president should not attend ICC hearings. Now, of course, Uhuru is following through with that common position from the African Union and therefore ensuring that that agenda carries through.
As a politician, Kenyatta is imposing and a force to reckon with. His father is the founding father of the nation. His family has got enormous wealth. He's savvy and articulate. And of course, he's the president of one of Africa's most advanced economy. Is he using his position to open an offensive against the court?
That's a difficult call to make. One would imagine that being indicted by the ICC, you would put up the best defense possible. The question then one would ask is, has he used state machinery at his disposal to influence this case in any way? What we are hearing from the Attorney General in Kenya is that Kenya has complied with all the requests of the prosecutor in terms of the evidence that has been requested. Uhuru Kenyatta, the president himself, has said that he has granted authority to all organs of state to provide assistance and evidence to the court. So one could say that indeed he could, but there is no evidence that he's doing so.
Now, when we look at other African leaders on the continent, I mean, some are pretty old, even in the age of about 90 years of age. We've got other presidents who are allegedly ailing, but still clinging on to power. Isn't this sending a bad message to the rest of the world? Well,
there's a positive story coming out of Africa, Kwangu, and this is the story that I would like to share with you. Africa Rising is also synonymous to its leadership and its processes around democracy and the kind of leadership that we have at the apex of our countries. The general trend is that leadership has improved in Africa. Indeed, you've raised some very interesting questions. We have two leaders who are over 90 who are probably still going to be running for office. We have some who are extremely unwell, who don't even admit that they are, and will probably die in office. But these negative stories do not define the leadership landscape of our continent.
What does define the leadership landscape then, David?
I think that what defines it is our ability to mobilize around Africa's growth agenda. I mean, what I see when we look at interstate developmental projects that are driven by regional integration, these are critical indicators of good leadership.
Well, David, thank you very much for your insight on this issue.